Okay, we are recording. How about some thumbs up? Oh, hi, Dana. Good to see you. Give me some thumbs up in the chat. If you're new to this, please, everyone in meeting, you'll see in the bottom, you will see a little message balloon that says chat. If you will click that, you're going to be able to chat with me off to the side. So if you can, okay, so Dylan isn't really Dylan. I see Allison. So can someone tell me, can you hear me okay? Just let me know. Oh, okay, thank you. Someone just let me know. I did something with the chat. Everyone publicly. Okay, you guys, you can chat and you can hear me. Everything's great. Okay, don't chat me, don't message me privately anymore. Okay, we're back. Okay, so you know one of my favorite things to do. Hi everyone, my name's JL. We're gonna get started here real soon. But oh, good. Laura did exactly what I love to see. Tell me where you're from, because this makes me so excited. So we've got Minnesota. So start putting in the chat. Where are you right now? I know you're at home. We got Santa Cruz, Chattanooga, Long Island. Hey, Long Island, Atlanta. Oh my gosh. Yay, Grand Junction, LA, Wisconsin. Okay, you guys, seriously, you make my day. This is like every Sunday. I washed my hair for you, y'all. I put makeup on again. That's how much I care about you. And you're the reason I shower at least once a week. Who wants to confess that your showering schedule might have changed a little bit over the last few weeks? You can confess that in the chat. It's fine. Okay, so for those of you who are new, I feel like there are a lot of you who I want to make sure, oops, someone's coming in from the waiting room. So we have 98 people. So you guys, this is the 5th class. 5 weeks ago on a Saturday, very impulsively, I was like, I miss people. I miss teaching classes. I know everyone's stuck at home. I wonder if I should teach a cooking class online. And over 300 of you showed up, bless your hearts, and only 100 got in. But we remedied that. And now we can get 500 people in. And so this is the 5th class. We've recorded all of them, except there was one little snafu. And the Instant Pot pressure cooking one didn't quite happen. So today the topic is vegan umami. And I'm going to be talking to you about how to add some really robust, hearty flavors to your cooking that will make food delicious, but also for those of you who live in multivore homes where maybe not all of you are eating plant-based or vegan, this might be a way for you to start to pull in some ingredients that makes the food maybe a little bit more meaty and familiar to people who are not eating vegan or plant-based yet. So I want to tell you a little bit about how this will go. I tried the best I can. When you see me over here, I'm looking at your chats, but I have a special guest today. So you guys may or may not know that in Colorado Springs, which is where I am, I run the Colorado Springs Vegan Cooking Academy, but I also am a food and beverage writer in town. So I write the Vegan Dining Review monthly for the Colorado Springs Gazette. I write on food and beverage for Springs Magazine. And because of that, I really recently kind of got immersed into the craft beer culture in Colorado Springs. And I was a wine girl for years and years and years. And I had this major objective and goal to become a lover of craft beer. And I'm sad to say it took me 7 years living in Colorado Springs before it happened. But let me just say that when I committed myself to it last spring, it turns out I'm a very good student. And I like me the craft beer now. And I've met a lot of really wonderful people along the way who are local brewers. And I don't like to pick favorites, but so how about if I just say this? If I were going to pick a top 3 of local breweries in Colorado Springs, Local Relic is definitely there. Okay, because I can't pick because I have friends, so I can't say that. So I'm just going to say I love Local Relic, and it's because I feel like they're fun. They experiment. Jeff, who you're about to meet, has this wine background plus with beer, and he's kind of bringing this together. And anyway, I think it's really fun. And I thought, since you guys are coming to join me every week for a class, why not learn something else? And so I approached Jeff and I said, I have this idea. What do you think? And those of you who get my newsletter, you got to really read a really informative post from him, a guest post in my newsletter this week about beer and wine. And he made a couple of recommendations that he thought would be great with the umami anasazi beans. The wine is Stellar Organics, a Pinotage. And if you don't have that, we recommended a Pinotage in general. And then he mentioned from Local Relic, a Juniper Belgian, which I happen to have poured right here. So I'm gonna go talking about it. The first 3 to 5 minutes of today's class is actually just gonna be Jeff popping in to tell you a little bit about pairing beers and wines with food, and with kind of like a lens toward the umami side of things. And then we'll pick up with the cooking class. So if you have questions for Jeff while he's talking, I will be reading the chat on the side. And oh, someone can't hear. If anybody's good on Zoom, will you help Sharon out? She's asking, she said she can't hear. You probably have to go into your audio settings, Sharon. Jeff, I think I have you on unmute. So are you there with us, and are you ready to jump in and tell us a little bit about food and beer? Where's Jeff? Let me make sure Jeff can talk. Jeff? Okay, Jeff, I see you're muted, and I'm going to unmute you.
Hey, there we go. Hi, everybody. Isn't technology fun? One of the, I mean, there are obviously lots of tragic things happening in the world and with everybody's health right now. And so if you're affected by that, I'll speak on Jail's behalf as well. Our heart goes out to you. For those of you who are fortunate just to be locked up at home, but everybody's in good health, if you had any reservations about day drinking, the good news is all of those reservations go away. Not that, even if you needed permission to day drink, you don't anymore, but if you did need permission, you officially have it. So my name is Jeff. I own Local Relic. We are a super nano scale kind of farm to table brewery in Colorado Springs. We make 200 different beers a year. So every day that we're brewing is something new and different and creative. Generally, we are, instead of saying, here are the beers we want to drink, let's go find the ingredients for it, we're saying, let's go out, work with local farmers or local suppliers, whatever it may be, find cool ingredients and turn them into the beer that they want to be. I'm not here to talk about our beer, although I will talk about one of them here in a second. I'm here really to talk about food and beer pairing. I am also a second-level certified sommelier. I sold wine in restaurants from one of the big resorts in town. And so I am classically and clinically trained both in the beer side and the wine side. And so feel free to throw questions at me about either one. The subject of the class today is umami, which is sort of this kind of secret fifth flavor. It's not really a secret. It just doesn't show up. We don't talk about it in our culture nearly as much as they do in some other cultures. Asian cuisine in particular talks about it a lot. The good news is if you think you don't know anything about umami, you're wrong. You totally do. You have been eating umami your whole life. Jail's going to talk a bunch about umami, but one of the things that causes umami to show up a lot is the process of fermentation, which happens to be the business of what I'm in. So I've had lots of practice at it. So when you were talking about pairing, I'll say it at the beginning and I'll say it again at the end. The most important rule of pairing is to drink what you like. And same as eat what you like. You know, if JL tells you this is the most delicious thing in the world and it's made out of cauliflower and you hate cauliflower, then you might not like it that much, and that's okay. Eat what you like, drink what you like. If I, as a classically trained beverage professional, would tell you it's a brilliant pairing or a less brilliant pairing, if you think it goes together and it makes you happy, then that's what you should do. So once you kind of understand that most important rule, there's lots of different ways to talk about pairing. The kind of two big families of pairings are this idea of complementary or congruent. So the idea of congruent is if you're making a food that has lots of citrus, and you might go out and find like a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc that has a lot of that kind of grapefruit kind of quality. So the citrus with citrus. Complementary, we'll talk more about flavors that go well together. So if you're doing something with like grilled mushrooms, finding a beer or a wine that has a lot of kind of smoky qualities about it. So it's not necessarily, mushrooms themselves aren't smoky, but mushrooms and smoke go well together. And so to find a beer or a wine that has that sort of smoke quality with it has that idea of congruence. You compare based on the weight of the food, which is, if you've heard sort of the old school rule of white meat gets white wine and red meat gets red wine. That's sort of that idea of weight and intensity. Jael's shaking her head because she would tell you the best thing that pairs with any wine is not meat. But the idea, so that same idea of white meat with white wine and red meat with red wine is really just the idea of kind of the weight of the dish. And so even if you are on a completely vegan diet or a completely vegetarian diet, certainly, it doesn't take you very long to do a little brainstorming and come up with a list of vegetables that are lighter in body or a list of vegetables that are heavier in body. It also doesn't take you very long to come up with an idea of certain preparations that may be lighter or heavier. So something, if you take the same vegetable and you steam it, let's talk about zucchini or squash. If you steam it, it's going to come out a little lighter bodied, whereas if you marinate it in a bunch of fun vinegars and everything else and a little bit of oil, and then you grill it, it's obviously going to be fuller bodied. And so, a steamed squash, I would pair against a white wine or a lighter beer. A grilled marinated squash, I would pair against a red wine or a heavier beer. So it's kind of weight and preparation plays in. As you're talking about pairing with your whole meal, you can pair with the entrees, with the sauces, with the herbs. You can pair with the theme of the meal. You can, find something that kind of spans the balance of every component on the plate or all of the components across all of the courses, or you can really focus on the pairing of the beverage with one particular component. Well, I told you the most important rule. The second most important rule is that there really aren't any rules. The most important part of pairing is that you're having fun with it. So to tell you a little bit about the two things that we're pairing today.
Okay, I have a quick question for you,
Yep,
Jeff.
go for it.
From Lisa. She'd like to know if you can give an example of a heavier beer or a lighter beer.
This is, I could talk for an hour just on this. As a general rule, you could use the color of the beer. And I don't know, right. And so you can see by the color on this Juniper Belgian, we're sort of floating somewhere in the middle. So generally color can be a decent indication. That being said, if you have a little bit more experience, maybe in the wine world, but not in the beer world, you can talk about light versus dark or light versus heavy. But the wine world spends a lot of time talking about body in wine, which kind of translates, translates to weight on your palate. So if you think about the difference between skim milk and 2% milk and whole milk and half, which I know is not vegan, sorry, but I'm trying to think of a good vegan alternative for it. But when you talk about sort of the weight or the kind of the mouth feel on your palate, that's sort of a second level, a little bit more advanced method to think about light versus heavy. I don't know if that's helpful. Jael's nodding. Cool. So I want to take just a quick minute before I hand the mic and the presentation back over to Jael to talk about the two pairings that we're suggesting for today. The first, Jael, I appreciate that you can't have a favorite. I can. And so this is, and I don't know, I'm going to try to get it up in front of my little webcam. And it might be backwards. It looks backwards on my screen, but it might not be on yours. This is a Juniper Belgian. This is kind of a Belgian-style Abbey ale, medium-bodied. You'll get little touches of dried fruit in it, kind of from the base beer, from the Belgian Abbey yeast that it's fermented with. We added some juniper berries to this. Generally, juniper berries, if you are in the beverage world, even a tiny bit, juniper berries will make you think of gin. And when we drink this, it has definitely has some of that kind of piney gin-likeness. It's not overwhelming, it's pretty subtle, but then there's a bunch of kind of citrusy, lemony, candy orange peel undertones to it. It's beautiful for drinking on its own. Our goal in pairing this with the umami Anasazi beans today is something that's a little relative to the weight on that. We wanted something that's a little lighter, a little crisper, something that will really let those flavors and that depth of flavor on the beans really shine through. Something that'll have a little bit of an element kind of a palate cleansing so that every bite that you go back for is going to be equally rich and equally delightful. Yeah, I like that beer a lot. JL, I left my wine bottle at home, which is kind of for those of you that can see behind me, I'm at the Carter
I think
page.
I think I have to talk for them to see it. There we go. Okay.
There we go. So if you can see behind me, we have a 120-year-old stone church that serves as our tasting room. That's called the Carter Payne. So I'm there right now. I left my wine bottle at home, which is terrible. But if you saw that bottle, it's the producer is called Stellar Organics. The grape is a Pinotage. It's kind of the signature grape of South Africa. It's a cross of Pinot Noir and Cinsault, which is not especially important for you to know. There is no quiz later, unless JL's going to surprise us. I don't think so. But it's so we went sort of the opposite direction that we did from the beer. So where the beer, we were looking for something a little lighter, a little crisper, a little more citrusy. With the beers, or with the wine, I mean, the goal was to go a little bit bigger, a little richer, a little rounder, a little smokier. There's kind of some nice berry notes in it. But the goal really was, if the Anasazi beans are sitting right in the middle, we wanted to have the beer pairing sort of off on one side and then the wine pairing in equal distance and weight and body and intensity on the other side. In either instance, the goal really is to create kind of a nice clear space on your palate for the umami and the deliciousness of the beans really to show through.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm so excited you did this because I thought, with us trying to talk about flavor and how to bring it out and maybe thinking about like dinners, if we were doing parties and having people over and trying to convince them how delicious and wonderful our food is, we already know it is. This is really helpful. And Jeff, I'm a huge fan of yours. I'm a huge fan of Local Relic, and you took a lot of time this week to read or to write that great post for us. And I know you guys are really busy doing deliveries and carry out during a very difficult time for the food and beverage industry. So I want to thank you for your valuable time. I'm a huge supporter of yours.
Yes, and your support means the world. Thank you. To the rest of you, thank you. If you reach out to JL, she can put you in touch with me. If you have further questions, I'm happy to chat further after this on offline. And the most important thing I can tell you, especially through all these challenging times, is please support local. Every dollar that you're spending is a vote for what you want to see survive when all this is done. I can tell you your support means the world to all of us as small business owners, so thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Adore you. I know you have to do your thing. I'm going to mute you, and
yeah, cool.
Here we go. Okay, you guys, so here we are. So we're back. So I did put a note in. Someone said, can you get Local Relic in Fort Collins? I don't think that they are distributing. So I think one of the things that Jeff didn't mention is that they actually do very small barrel. Like when you get a bottle of theirs, it'll say 136 bottles produced, and then that's it. So what I've learned is don't get attached because it goes away. I want to echo what he said about supporting small businesses too. Today I'm wearing a t-shirt from Herbivore Clothing Company. The world used to be cooler. And I've been ordering from them. Laura is here and she works with the Herbivorous Butcher, and this is a great time for you to get some really delicious vegan cheeses and meats from a vegan company. And so that was one of the reasons I wanted to bring someone in locally. These Zoom classes are happening because I am in Colorado Springs and I have a Colorado Springs Vegan Cooking Academy. So there's some things going on over here. Let me just tend to it very quickly. Everything's fine because I wanted to get things going. Very quickly. So let's talk about the recipe. Let's see. Someone has their Herbivores t-shirt on too. Awesome. And Erin said that Local Relic has a great membership program. I am a member, and it's pretty awesome. Okay. So it's actually, the company is someone asked about the vegan cheese company. It's actually cheeses and meats, and they're in Minneapolis. It's called the Herbivorous Butcher. So when things are normal, you can go in and get food there. But right now in Minneapolis, and Laura, correct me if I'm wrong, but they are doing curbside and pickup. So people who live in Minneapolis can still get artisan vegan meats and vegan cheeses created by the Herbivorous Butcher, but all of us can order it from around the US. And so, they make like vegan steak and sausage and I think meatloaf now, and they have some gluten-free vegan meats. So, all 50 states and Puerto Rico. Awesome. And Laura just posted the link in the chat. So today the topic is vegan umami. We're making a very quick recipe, and I know that you guys are all kind of creating it different ways today, so I'm going to tell you how I'm making it today. So in my newsletter, I gave you a link. Wait, was it in the newsletter? No, in the newsletter, I told you a couple different ways you could make today's recipe. So first off, I'm living in the real world right now, like the rest of you. And so grocery shopping isn't always exactly the way I want, but I did get toilet paper this week and tofu, double T, winning. But anyway, I couldn't get Anasazi beans. So I'm not using Anasazi beans today. Usually I can get them everywhere. They're ubiquitous here in the Southwest. And but a great alternative is a cranberry bean or a pinto bean. You can, if you're cooking with me today and you're using a dry bean, hopefully you soaked it overnight. It's not terrible if you didn't, but your cooking time is going to be different. But I ended up needing to use just straight up canned pinto beans today. And I'm going to be doing mine in my Instant Pot, and I'm going to tell you how. Not super pressure cooking to cook the beans. The beans are already cooked. So I'm going to give you my strategy, but I know that, how can we see you with the full screen? Now you're just a square. I think what you need to do, sorry, and I'm not going to be able to keep paying attention to this. If you go up to the right of the screen, you're going to see a grid, and there's a choice between galley view and speaker view. And if you choose speaker view, you'll see me. Galley view, you see everybody. I hope that helps. Okay, so so today we're making umami anasazi or umami pinto or umami cranberry beans. I'm curious what you guys are making today. So in the chat, if you would just let me know what kind of bean you're using and if it was soaked overnight or if it was canned, because I'm just kind of curious. So if you could let me know in the chat, that would be amazing. Red kidney beans, right on. Okay, I love that. Canned pinto beans, soaked pintos, great. Okay, great, you guys, thank you, I appreciate that. So the first thing I want you to be doing, I mentioned it in the chat and you might not be doing it yet, is we want to caramelize the onions. Why did I just go like this? Because we're not really caramelizing them. This is a super speedy way to add some flavor. Once this starts cooking, I'm going to go into some detail on umami, so trust me, but I want you to be cooking with me and I want to get this in and start cooking so I can talk to you about umami. So with an Instant Pot or a pressure cooker, and that's the recipe was originally a pressure cooker recipe, the caramelization is really just cooking the onions on a really high heat. So I used a little oil. You don't have to use liquid smoke if you don't want to. If you're using the smoked paprika, that will bring some smokiness. It won't have the same flavor. Like whenever people ask if they can do different things with recipes, of course, always follow your intuition, do your thing. But I always say to people, don't go and review my recipe after you changed it 5 times and then said it wasn't good, because I didn't get to see if it was good or not. I didn't eat it. So go for something smoky. So if you like a smoked paprika, do that. If you have some chipotle powder, that's a great way to bring some smokiness in without the liquid smoke. It would probably, someone asked me if it would work with lentils, and it will work with any bean. The cooking time is just going to be a little different. So the way I do a really speedy caramelization is in a stove. You know, if you're doing this in a pot on your stove top, in a skillet, cast iron skillet would be amazing, in a pressure cooker, in your Instant Pot. I put it on a very high saute with just a smidge of oil, not much at all, pinch of sugar. I added a little sugar to really bring out the caramel with the onions. And I'm just letting it go. I want these onions to turn brown. So what I always have on hand is a little bit of that beef style broth that I recommend when we're cooking the beans. I just use it so that when the onions start to stick, and they will, that you can just pour a little bit of this beef style broth in it. So this is what I used today, because it's what I had. Again, things in my pantry, it's been a while, y'all, am I right? Have we been doing this like for, well, if we've been doing this for 5 weeks, we've been in for like 6 weeks, right? I guess it depends on your state. Anyway, I have only 1 cube left of this, but this was my beef style broth. And again, that's not necessarily, not necessary either. You could just take regular vegetable broth and then maybe add like a little cinnamon to it or a little chili powder, and it kind of brings out some savory, but it also brings out the color. A lot of these ingredients that we're using in this recipe, it's about the color of, we're bringing out this rich, red, kind of deep, complex flavor. So Yes, you can do no chicken broth. Absolutely. I have some of those. I have the Butler chicken style. I have the not chicken. So there's lots of different, oh, and then this is one of my favorites too, is the mossel. Mossel makes a beef style and it makes a chicken style, and then they just have a regular one. So anyway, my onions have been going for a while, so we're ready to roll, but I'll show you how it looks. This is a really simple and fast recipe. So I'm going to bring this camera down so you can see. So look at all that rich brown. It's sticking. We want that yummy. I'll do it one more time because I saw a couple of you peeking. I know you're cooking and trying to look at the same time. I saw someone do that. I can't tell you how much I love that you guys are cooking with me. And I can't remember whose idea that was last time, but anyway, thank you. So so my onions are caramelized. I used a little oil. I used a little sugar. And then I put some of the broth in. Now I'm gonna throw in my mushrooms. I didn't really measure them. I just used the measuring cup to kind of keep me on track. And so the mushrooms are one of the things that we are adding for the umami flavor. And again, I'm gonna define umami shortly, but I want you to know caramelizing the onions brought in a layer of umami. Adding the mushrooms, we just added a new layer of umami. So we have two umami things happening right now. Now I'm just gonna put my pinto beans in. And again, these are canned. So I'll tell you how I'm gonna cook this in this Melfi multi-cooker with canned beans. A lot of times people don't realize that you can use canned beans in a pressure cooker or multi-cooker. Those of you who took that class with me know that. So now the next things I'm going to add are a smoked paprika. Regular paprika is fine. The smoked just brings more of an umami flavor to it. And I think I'm gonna do, I'm not even really measuring, but I'll just do a couple. I'm the worst at measuring, as you guys know. I like this stuff. Now, someone just said they don't like liquid smoke, so you don't need to use it. This is a vegan one, you know, always look at the label. A little bit of liquid smoke goes a very long way, you guys. Seriously, if you ever accidentally put in like a teaspoon of this, you'll know it's nothing but smoke, and then you'll be one of those people who said you don't like liquid smoke, when in fact, what you probably don't like is way too much liquid smoke. But I'm just gonna use a quarter of a teaspoon. Not even that, truthfully, because I'm using canned, so I don't have that many beans in there. So those right now are the only things I need to get in here, except for the broth. So now I want to talk about broth a little bit, and I'm going to bring this over and see if I can show you what I want to do. So first off, I don't know if you guys noticed, it actually looks really gross. My little bouillon cube is barely dissolving, but I literally don't care because I'm about to pressure cook it, so whatever. But I do want you to see how I'm deciding how much liquid to do. Now, I don't know how this is gonna go. Let's see what happens. Okay, cool. So these are beans that are already cooked, you guys, right? I could have eaten them out of the can. And the key, I'm gonna come back and say hello to you, is we want broth from this, not soup, but we don't want like dry beans to come out of this. We want a soupy, thick broth, because when this is done cooking, that's when we're gonna add the red miso. The red miso doesn't come until we're done cooking. And I'll explain that and how you use miso when you're cooking when it's time for that. So I'm trying to find the perfect amount of liquid for the cooking time. I'm using canned beans and I'm pressure cooking. I'm only gonna pressure cook for like 2 or 3 minutes, low pressure, quick release, because I don't wanna blow out these beans and make them mushy, right? If you soaked your pintos or your anasazis overnight, you're gonna cook them for somewhere to 6 to 8 minutes on high pressure, and you're gonna need to do a natural release. So yours may or may not be done when this class is done. We'll see how that goes. But for those of you who are doing canned beans, this is only gonna take a couple of minutes. So what I'm gonna do, oh, my pot is talking to me. I know, stop it, it's fine, you're fine. Wow, it's getting all excited. You'll be fine. Okay, so here, I want enough. You guys know, if you took the pressure cooking class, that I say you need at least a half a cup of liquid in your pot. I have put in probably exactly that, maybe a cup and a half. I'm getting those little bouillon things. Oh, heck, I'm just going to put it all in. Okay, so now I want you guys to see that I've got a little liquid in here. So I've got plenty so that it's not going to burn, because I want a nice thick broth, because I'm going to show you 2 ways to serve this when we're done. So now I'm going to put this in my pot. If you are using dry beans and you soaked them overnight, please use the amount of liquid I told you to use in the recipe, okay? Because you want to make sure your beans cook. If you're living in Colorado Springs, and if you did not take my Instant Pot class, I want to remind you that you want to cook 20% longer. So when I do a soaked anasazi or a soaked pinto bean, I usually do it for about 12 minutes. So the formula is once you hit 3,000 feet, you add 5% cooking time to dry beans, whether they're dry or soaked. And for every 1,000 after that, you add another 5%. So for me at 6,000 feet, I add 20% cooking time. So I've got my beans in here, and now I'm going to close this. I'm going to choose pressure, and I want low pressure. And I'm just going to do it for 2 minutes because I want to get through this so you guys can really see. But we're about to really talk about umami in a minute, and I will stop and answer some of your questions too. And I'm going to set it for a quick release, because this is the Melfi pot, so it's going to do a quick release without me having to do anything. So now my beans are about to start cooking. So let me check to see. I don't have the mushrooms in the recipe. It's a 1/2 cup finely diced mushrooms. I feel like it's in the recipe. I cut and pasted it in here. Someone said that they don't know how many mushrooms. So good store for vegan broths in Colorado Springs. Honestly, I get vegan broths at King Soopers, which is a Kroger. I'm saying that for the people who aren't in Colorado Springs. Natural Grocers, Sprouts, Mountain Mama. I can find it almost everywhere in the broth section. Okay, so mushroom broth. Talk about umami. That's a great idea. And that, you know what that makes me think of? Have you guys ever seen that mushroom soup? I think it's by either Imagine brand or Pacific, and it's a creamy portobello mushroom soup, but it's vegan. If I were using, well, I am using canned beans. That might be something that could be really delicious in it, and just really make that broth even soupier. Yeah, and Walmart does have organic vegetable broth. It's all true. Okay, so I think I've answered enough questions that I can keep talking. So now let's jump over to just the topic at hand. So we're talking today about umami. And umami, as Jeff explained, isn't Jeff wonderful? I mean, seriously, I owe him, so I'm going to have to buy him a beer. Oh, is anybody drinking with me today? I'm just curious, like how many people read my newsletter and were completely offended. Oh, I just saw Laura. So I just saw a can. Thank you. Okay, tell me. Yeah, heck yeah. Okay, cool. So I am doing the Juniper Belgian, which is delicious. And then when we eat later, we're going to do the Stellar Organics. But anyway, I just thought that was so sweet that Jeff did that. So he's so smart about food and drink. And he already explained to you that when you think about umami, Sharon said I gave permission. True story. Umami is considered the 5th flavor. So we know sweet, sour, bitter, and salt. And in Japanese culinary cuisine, years and years ago, a term started to be used called umami. And we talked about this a little bit in some of the previous classes. And umami is, I mean, honestly, like originally when you were talking about umami, it's like MSG, you know, which everyone's like, oh, I don't want to go to a restaurant that has MSG. And it's like MSG's like got all the umami in it. So I'm always like, give me extra MSG, but whatever, that's my own thing. But umami, the 5th flavor, can be sort of thought of as like a meatiness, but it doesn't require meat, or it can be a sense of satiety, a sense of savory. And so as Jeff mentioned, we're eating umami foods all the time. We just didn't know it. And the reason I'm covering this topic in this class today is because when you do intentionally pull umami into a recipe, you start to change the flavor. So let's just think about what's going on right now in our pots. We caramelized some onions. We added some liquid smoke. We added some mushroom, and we added smoked paprika. So we did paprika is umami, mushroom is umami, caramelizing is umami. The beef style broth is bringing out umami. So now imagine you just had a pot and you put a can of pinto beans in, and you put some water in to cook them. So can't you already kind of in your head and in your taste buds, like sort of sense what the difference would be? Just kind of like it makes my taste buds just sort of like to squirt, like oh, I want to eat that, right? So this idea is to bring in some elements, and I mean this is a little overkill, but I did call it umami on a salsa bean, so I could be liberal in this case. But I tend to say to myself when I'm cooking a meal, particularly if I'm cooking a meal for people who are coming over, or if I'm going to a potluck and I know there will be non-vegans there, I always ask myself, how many ways have I brought umami into this dish so that when they eat it, they will say, I am satisfied. That was filling, that was meaty, but without the meat. And so we're using lots of those ingredients right now. Pressure cooker is coming up on my end. Okay. So let's talk about some other ingredients. Well, we already talked about the liquid smoke. The other things that we're going to add that are umami ingredients are tamari or soy sauce. It's fermented. It brings in umami, and then miso is an umami. So basically everything in this recipe other than the beans themselves are an umami element. So you don't need to bring 8 things in every time you're cooking, but you do kind of want to think about it. So let's talk about some of the foods that are umami foods. Sun-dried tomatoes are an umami food. Ketchup, wine, toasted nuts and seeds. And what I mean by that is you could take sesame seeds and put them in a recipe, and that doesn't necessarily bring out the umami element. The minute you toast those sesame seeds and then add them into the recipe, you just brought out a layer of umami. So it's taking that extra step to sort of elevate the flavor and to bring some flavor out of an ingredient. Miso, we talked about dried vegetables. I'm trying to think what I have. I've recently rearranged my, so dulse flakes, these are a seaweed. If I just put a pinch of dulse flakes into some dried beans and water in the pot, I just added an element of umami. When you eat sushi, vegan sushi, that's right. Every weekend I order from one restaurant to support them offering vegan food. Today's delivery is actually coming from Denver. They're called Wellness Sushi, and it's 100% vegan sushi. I'm super excited that's coming tonight at about 5 o'clock. But anyway, the point is when you're having sushi, that nori roll, when you wrap it up and you've got that big sheet of seaweed, that's umami. So the minute you bite into that, you're getting that saltiness that comes from the sea, right? Okay, olives. Black olives, green olives, you know, ripe olives, they bring out umami. Capers. So like if you just added some capers, if you just made some pasta really quick, just took pasta or like spaghetti from a box, put it in the water and boiled it, and then threw a little garlic in, maybe a little vegan butter or a little olive oil, and then just put a couple of tablespoons of capers and stirred it together and served it just like that, you would just be like, nom, 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 nom. Those capers, that saltiness brings out umami, and so does nutritional yeast. So now imagine sprinkling a little nutritional yeast in that and turning it a little cheesy, and you are bringing out the umami. Fermented foods like sauerkraut and kimchi. So I thought what I'd do is start to show you some of the things that are just in my cupboards and in my refrigerator. Okay, mine is done, it's beeping, but now it's gonna quick release on its own. This is the Melfi multi-pot, so it just kind of does its own thing. So as soon as it's done, I'm gonna show you how we add the miso. So I'm gonna show you, I always, in my classes, those of you from Colorado Springs who take my classes all the time, hear me chat about this constantly. Vinegar is a way to bring in umami. Any kind of vinegar, okay? And so it can be balsamic vinegar, it can be, let's see, I have all kinds of vinegar. Apple cider vinegar, rice vinegar, red wine vinegar, white balsamic glaze. What else do I have? Oh, chili pepper balsamic glaze. So the point that I'm trying to make here by bringing all these things out, ooh, brown rice vinegar. You probably have some more that I just can't find. Oh, coconut water vinegar. So do you need to go out and buy all of these vinegars right now? Of course not. But if you're wanting to start to add more umami to your cooking and to your pantry, you know, each time you go to the grocery store, pick up maybe a vinegar you've never tried before. Some of you have probably gone to those amazing stores where they have like the tap room for olive oil and vinegars, and you can try all these different things. I love them. I'm really into shopping locally right now because of what's happening, but I'm going to show you a little trick. So the vinegar is the umami element, right? But we sometimes might get a little fatigued. Like if I have rice vinegar, one where I put rice vinegar on everything, and whenever I pull it out, my husband's like, hey. But I want to show you a really fun way to make your own flavorful, umami-rich vinegar. So in this jar, I just put 2 tablespoons of currants. You could do any dried fruit. It could be cranberries, apricots, pineapple, mango, raisins, but currants is what I had. Then what I did was just took a very basic Costco balsamic. So I didn't spend a fortune on this. This is just like my run-of-the-mill, everyday balsamic. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour it over the currants. And then I'm going to leave this on my counter for a couple of days. And I'm going to be making my own currant balsamic vinegar. So you could take any dried fruit that you have right now, pour a little balsamic, just run of the mill, whatever balsamic, and then you're going to have this really flavorful new way of bringing some umami in. But better yet, do this with a kale salad, but use these plumped up currants or whatever dried fruit you used as you massage the kale salad. And each bite you take into that dried fruit, you're going to get more and more of that flavor and of that savoriness. When I first started thinking about umami, it was Jenny Messina, who I co-authored the book Vegan for her. When I say co-authored, what I mean is she did all the heavy lifting and I just wrote some recipes for that book. She was the first person who kind of turned me on to umami. And Dave, a lot of you know that my husband Dave is vegan now, but he wasn't vegan the whole time that I've been vegan or vegetarian. I think he has been like for 4 or 5 years now. But he does a lot of the cooking now, actually probably 80% of the cooking, whatever. But Dave is like super big on like the protein and the starch, like done. Tofu and potatoes all night long, all week long. And then I'll be like, what do you think? Something green? I don't know. So that's just not his default. Vegetables aren't where he goes, right? So then when I heard about umami, I decided to take the theory to practice. So I took a head of romaine lettuce and I sliced it in half. And so I had both sides up, like the flat sides up. And I sprinkled, or I drizzled a little olive oil over both sides, a little lemon juice, pressed some minced garlic into it, salt and pepper. And then I took it outside on the grill and put the flat side down for a minute. And then I flipped it over for another 30 seconds. And then I brought it back into the house and it had charred marks and it had been grilled for just a minute and a half. And I sliced it up, put it in a bowl, and it became warm romaine salad. And he devoured it because grilling is a way to bring out umami. And so it had this meatiness to it. It had a smell of familiarity to it. And it just changed the flavor by getting hot. So even when you are like, say you come home from work when we go back to work, or for those of you who are essential and working, bless your heart. I hope you know that we appreciate you so much. And you come home from work and you're like, okay, well, I guess I should do some umami, but I'm like, I can't even think about it. Just slice a vegetable and put it on a grill or sear it in a like sort of a grilled mark. I have a grill mark cast iron. I think I still have it. I'll show you. And then even just for a minute, I love this skillet. And this is how if I just want to get some grill marks on some zucchini or some of my summer squash, and just grilling will bring out that element of umami. And so drizzling a little vinegar over a tomato and then putting it on the grill, and you just use 2 different umami elements. And so imagine slicing a tomato. I love raw tomatoes, of course, so I can slice it and I can eat it. Now imagine that slice with a wee bit of this yummy currant infused balsamic that would just went on the grill for a minute to just make it juicy with a little sweetness coming from it. And like when I describe that, let me know in the chat. Is that making sense? Is your head telling you what this kind of should smell like, taste like? Tell me. Yum. Someone said yum, so I'm going to take that as a yes. Okay, because sometimes it's a little esoteric, like I'm trying to describe flavors, but hopefully you're getting that. So let me show you some of the other things that I try to have in my refrigerator. Aha, I almost always, no, that's garlic. There we go. I almost always have some sauerkraut, kimchi. I go to I go to our Asian market. It's the Asian Pacific market that's here in Colorado Springs. It's out east, and I'll get things like gochujang, which brings out umami. I've got some chipotle hot sauce. So there are ways to start to build your pantry and your refrigerator that has these flavors. And then, because some people like to be really literal, let's see if I can find it. You can actually find products that are called umami, like umami salt. But there should be no surprise that it's not just salt, it's dried shiitake mushrooms. So do you want to not spend $10 on this bag of umami salt? Buy some dried mushrooms, put some kosher salt with it into a blender or a coffee grinder and blend it, and you just made your own umami salt and save a little bit of money. But those dried mushrooms is what makes it the umami salt. And I think I have another umami seasoning that I got at a Veg Fest once. Let's see. Umami seasoning. This one has allspice, cinnamon, nutmeg, nutritional yeast, annatto mushroom powder, smoked black tea, smoke is umami, miso powder, umami, and chicory and garlic powder. So hopefully that's giving you some ideas of what this umami means. But let's get back to the beans for a minute. Let me get rid of all of these vinegars that I just pulled out. And I want to show you what I want you to do with the miso and the tamari for these beans. So the pressure has been released on mine. So I'm going to put this here, and I'll just do a couple of things. So for those of you, if you're not used to using miso, what you may not know is that miso soup, like when you go, like if you go to a restaurant and you can get miso soup, or if you're craving miso soup when you're not feeling well, to get the benefits of the miso can't be cooked. Now, can't, I hate the word can't, shouldn't, etc. So I want to make sure you're hearing me. That's if you want to get sort of that, so because miso is like alive, it's a fermented live, it can, it's got these great probiotic, probiotic effect to the food, right? So for you to get that benefit for your gut, you don't want to cook it. But having said that, I will take Brussels sprouts, I will cut them in half, and I will toss them in red miso paste or white miso paste and drizzle a little vinegar and roast them. And yeah, the miso got all cooked up. So did I just take a probiotic when I eat my Brussels sprouts? No. Were they delicious? Yes. And so you can look at miso as something that's delicious and wonderful to add to your food, or you could look at it from the probiotic effect. So I just want to show this to you so you can experience both. I could just throw the miso in, but I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is get some of the broth out of here, and I'm going to put it in a measuring cup. And then I'm going to show you how to get your miso ready for your dish. So for those of you who are cooking, if you find that you've got like more broth than you wanted to have, remember you're about to add some miso to this, but you can also put the pressure cooker or the Instant Pot back on saute so it can cook it down a little bit. So I'm going to take a couple of I think like 2 tablespoons, and I'm going to put this in the broth. I'm going to show you in just a minute so you can see. It's a little awkward, I know. For those of you who are with me for the first time, you're in my house. There's nothing fancy going on in here. So, we don't have cameras overhead. We don't have fancy lights, and I definitely did not have a makeup person. We're all just cooking together. So I hope you didn't come here expecting anything fancy. So I'm going to take this whisk, and I'm going to mix this miso into this very hot broth. So if you were making miso soup, that's how you would do it. Like you would cook your veggies, and then you would just pull out like a cup of the broth, and then just add the miso and stir it until it gets nice and thick. And one of the reasons in this case is because we just don't want to bite into a big old glop of miso, right? So now I'm just going to pour this in. And so now I've just added I've kind of thickened things up a little bit. And I will bring this down so you can see. Bring the camera down so you can kind of see how thick that broth got. And now it's nice and cloudy from the miso. So the reason I want you to see the amount of liquid that's in here is, again, the broth, which is why I really recommend that you soak the beans, because the broth is kind of the star. It's not just the beans. It's not just the mushrooms. It's not just the caramelized onions. We're bringing it all together to make a really delicious bite. So I'm going to show you how I would serve this. And then I'm going to take your questions on adding umami. So I made in advance, I'll show you this. This is mushroom rice. It's also from my book, Vegan Pressure Cooking. And so I made this rice, just regular old brown rice. I made it an umami brown rice because I added mushrooms and I added a savory vegetable broth. So that's just one way to take something super simple. And I just wanted to give you that example. Sure, you could do a recipe that has 7 elements of umami in it. Or you could say, I'm making barley this weekend, and that's going to be my bulk cooked my bulk cooked grain. And then you could say, how can I bring some umami into this? Well, one way with millet, toast it first. And so when you put the millet in a hot pot first, and just kind of, you have it on a high heat and you stir it constantly, and you start to smell it. It becomes fragrant, becomes aromatic, and you start to hear it pop. Then you add the vegetable broth. You just turned that millet into an umami level millet. I just took regular old brown rice and turned it into elevated umami rice simply by adding the mushrooms. So here's one way you can serve an incredibly umami rich dish. So you can just put the rice on a plate, and then I'll just use this. And then again, we want this broth, right? So what I'm going to do is pour this over and just look at that rich, rich broth. So that's one way to have a completely umami rich meal. But then, and this is why I usually love to make this, I make sourdough bread every week. This week, it was a wheat and tough flour black and tan sesame seed bread, but I'm just going to spoon some of these beans and a lot of the broth. And then I'm going to serve this with this nice crusty bread. And so that's just another way to add just like this richness to the flavor. So with that, this might be one of the quickest classes I've ever done, but now, which some of you might be disappointed, you probably started to count on my 90-minute classes, right? Because usually I'm making like 5 things. The fact that I simmered myself down and only made like 3, I'm pretty impressed with myself. So why don't I look here for best sub for miso? I'm going to be honest with you, there's not. So you could do it without miso. There's plenty of umami in this recipe, but miso is kind of one of the stars of this, and it has such a great savory, rich flavor to it. I don't know if it's because you can't get it, and if that's the case, there is some shelf-stable miso. I think Eden Foods might make one. If it's because of soy, I think there are some chickpea misos out there now, but most of them still have some soy. I think the only brand that doesn't, I feel like it's called like Blue River or something like that, but if you Google it, you might be able to find it. Yeah, I currently can't find it. So many things are really hard to find at the stores right now, but I will tell you when times were different, I don't even say normal anymore because I don't think I don't think we know what normal is gonna be in the future, but let's just say pre C-19, I could find miso at my local Kroger. I could find it at Sprouts and at Natural Grocers and some of the local health markets. And so it tends to be right next to the tofu, the water-packed cold tofu. It's somewhere near the dairy section. White miso, no, so that's a really great question. So someone asked, would white miso make a difference with red miso? So the flavors get a little more intense based on the color, but I rarely worry about that. Oh, I don't worry about it at all, frankly, but I don't use that as my motivating factor. In the same way that I like my earrings and my handbags and my belts and my shoes to match, I like my food to match. So since I'm making something that's nice and red like this, I wanted a red miso because I would just kind of add to the richness and the depth of the color, but from a flavor perspective. any kind of miso you have is fine. And I have lots of, I should shut these things off. Cancel. Let's see, I have a few other misos. I have, oh, here's my chickpea miso, which I'm pretty sure still has soy in it. Let me see. Oh no, it doesn't. So this is Miso Master. It's rice, koji, organic chickpeas, sun-dried sea salt, Blue Ridge Mountain well water, and koji spores. So this is a chickpea. Let me show you the color. So it's more like a yellow. It's just, oh my God. Do you know what I do sometimes with my fresh baked bread? I'll mix a little bit of this with some melted vegan butter, and then I spread that on just a piece of bread. It's so delicious. And then I think I have one other. This is just a light yellow miso. This is what I tend to use in my miso soups. So that was a great question. Vegemite, yes, Vegemite and Marmite. And I'm wondering, I think I might be out of it. It's gonna make me so sad. Oh no, I'm not. Okay, so Vegemite and Marmite. Who here loves or hates Marmite or Vegemite? Yeah, tahini's amazing also. And tahini, big hate, yuck. Okay, this is hilarious. It's so true. There was a time for Marmite where on their website, the only way you could get into the website, you had to choose love or hate to get in, which I thought was really funny. Okay, I got some loves. Somebody said it's too salty. 100%. You do not put a spoon into Marmite or Vegemite and eat it. You add it to something, and it is pure umami bomb. Well, what I used to do was take just a little smidge of Marmite and mix it with my peanut butter, or tahini, as someone else mentioned, and put that on my bread. And then they got smart and they figured it out themselves. So now they make a Marmite peanut butter, and it is so freaking good. And I'm not going to be able to convince Laura because she's not on Team Marmite. But good with just a little bit. That's right. Miso. Someone just asked, how long does miso last in the refrigerator? Forever. I mean, I go through a lot of it. But I've had some that like specialty misos that I had a friend who brought some back from Japan. He's been in my refrigerator for well over a year. It is a fermented product. And so it is going to last. It's a live product. And so, yeah, it lasts a long time, which is why when some people, if they're using it for the first time and they go to the store, it's not that expensive anyway, but it might seem like that when you look at it if you don't have it. But you guys, a little bit goes such a long way, and it lasts for a very long time. Okay, so let me see. Okay, lots of people having opinions about Marmite or Vegemite. I love you all so much for having very strong opinions. Compare Bragg's versus shoyu soy sauce. Well, both are umami, which is today's topic. So Bragg's is trying to tell us that it's got all these other things. Like, I don't know. I think I have some Bragg's. I'm just like not really on Team Bragg's in the sense of like, you know, with my vegan card, I might not even have any. Do I have any Bragg's? Like, I mean, it's still got soy sauce in it. It just has other stuff, and they say aminos, and it's supposed to be like I think I have some coconut aminos. Do I have any? Let's see. Let's try and find the coconut and see what else they put in this. So someone was asking about the difference between the soy sauce and the, I just want to see what the ingredients are for this. A nourishing soy sauce replacement. So those of you who aren't new to me, or are new to me, may not know that I kind of have opinions about foods, and when people like try to make some foods bad or not bad, and I'm just like, if it's vegan, I'm eating it. What's in this? This one's soy free, so the coconut aminos could be a great alternative for somebody who wants soy sauce but can't have soy because they're allergic to it. So for that, I could be all behind it, but I'm pretty sure that the Bragg's liquid aminos has soy. So anyway, that didn't really answer your question. I just got all opinionated. So what else do I want to tell you about? Okay, so ways to add umami. So adding vinegar to cooked vegetables. So like this yummy, how many people here are going to try some dried fruit with some balsamic vinegar and make your own? Let me know in the chat if you're going to do it. Maybe, oh, someone just, June just raised your hand. June, did you do it during the class? I can see your head if you're, no, but you're going to do it? Okay. Dried cranberries, genius. Lots of definites, lots of yeses. You guys, this is so much fun. I'm so glad somebody said dried cranberries. So during the holiday season, you know, like a massaged kale salad, if you've had massaged kale salad before, you want to use some kind of like acid, some kind of fat. It can be an oil or it could be avocado. During the holiday season, what I like to do is put the dried cranberries and dried cherries. So I've got tart and sweet with my balsamic vinegar, and I drizzle that on my kale. And then I'll use avocado for my fat. And then I'll put the plumped up cherries and cranberries in while I'm massaging it in orange juice too. So I've got orange and cranberry and cherry and just a smidge of the balsamic, because I'm not pouring it in, because I'm going to use the orange juice to be the sort of the acidic breakdown of the kale and the flavor. But by using the dried cherries and cranberries that plumped up in the balsamic vinegar, I'm adding that hint of umami, but then I still have the vinegar to use for something else. So it's a really fun way to add some complexities of flavor. Dried apple would be incredible. That sounds delicious to me. And so what I really do recommend, if you're going to start making your own infused balsamics, is you guys just get the generic kind. You don't need like a $20 bottle of balsamic vinegar. You're just bringing out a little flavor. This isn't a ton. And I'll use these currants and other things, but I'm going to get back to my original point, which is adding umami to vegetables. If you roast your vegetables, you're starting to bring in a cooking method that brings out the umami. But now imagine drizzling a little bit of this and some of the currants in with the vegetables and then roasting them on a really high heat. You're going to get a little caramelization on the vegetables, a sweetness from it, and the vinegar will bring out the umami. How long after 6 minutes should the beans stay in the Instant Pot? You want to do a natural release with your beans, but if it's been, let's say 15 or 20 minutes, you're probably fine, and just go ahead and force the release. Someone was asking about when to release their beans. Yes, the Trader Joe's white balsamic is like $3. And so you just kind of got to know this. Like, I'm not saying don't buy expensive vinegars when you see something special and then use it for something special. But I'm also saying there are ways where you can save some money and bring out this really delicious flavor. So adding vinegar to cooked vegetables, you guys, I could add that apple cider vinegar to cooked vegetables and I would bring umami out from it. When I grew up, when my dad made Brussels sprouts, he served them with apple cider vinegar. There's nothing fancy going on in my house, but you know what? He didn't know it and I didn't know it, but he was adding umami to that flavor. Other ways to bring out umami is adding nutritional yeast to your meals. Nutritional yeast is umami food. You can do powder or you can do flakes. I'm sure I have flakes somewhere. Oh yeah, I always have both. So here's nutritional yeast powder. Here are flakes. The minute you add nutritional yeast to your popcorn, you know how you all love your nutritional yeast on your popcorn. I know you do. If you haven't done it yet, you're welcome. Do it. You're adding umami, so it's not just popcorn. Laura, is that a kitty cat? Oh, hi, kitty. Oh my goodness. Okay, and so what else do I want you to do? Oh, sun-dried tomatoes. So I told you sun-dried tomatoes are, so any kind of ripe tomato is an umami element. So I like to have dried tomatoes, and I actually buy them in a pouch, so I don't get the oil-packed ones. I choose later if I want to rehydrate them in oil, but often I just do it like in a warm vegetable broth. You can take a can of white beans, put them in a food processor, add some rehydrated sun-dried tomatoes into the food processor, hit puree and eat it. And those white beans are going to be so meaty from the sun-dried tomatoes. So that's one way. So even if you just took home-cooked beans that you just made in your Instant Pot, you made it with water, and now you take a scoop and put some sun-dried tomatoes in that, whiz it up, and then spread it on a tortilla wrap and roll it up, and you take it anywhere you're going for lunch or just sitting down on your couch and having lunch, and you just had an umami-rich lunch from that. Adding Marmite or miso to soups. So if I'm just making just a straight up chili, or maybe like a very simple lentil soup with vegetables, I'm likely going to stir something in. I'll either put a drizzle of balsamic vinegar on it before I serve it, or I will whisk in some miso just to bring out the saltiness and the umami, and it just sort of elevates that flavor from a simple soup. And then, as I mentioned, braising or grilling your vegetables is just a really great way to do that. So with that, what questions do you have about umami? I think I have a couple of links I want to drop you. And then I don't know how to do this. I tried to set up a poll this time. I wonder if do you guys see it anywhere? Polling, launch poll. Okay, I just launched a poll and I'm asking you, next Sunday's cooking class is actually gonna be the basics of meal prep. And so I'm going to teach you the fundamentals of putting together an amazing mason jar salad, but I'm also going to show you just sort of how you can do some batch cooking and meal prep it up. but I haven't decided what I'm going to do for May 3rd. So I'm asking you right now to vote. Do you want me to do Instant Pot Pressure Cooking 2.0, which I don't know exactly what I mean by that, but I think I might mean things like making soy or coconut yogurt on the yogurt function. I might mean making homemade tempeh. I might mean doing pot in pot cooking. I might mean cooking 2 different things at the same time. And then sauces, dips, and spreads is exactly like it sounds like. So how can you add some flavor? Big hint, add umami through sauces and dips and spreads. So people are liking all of these ideas. That's really great. Okay, so things I wanted to let you know, I'm gonna provide you the link to my classes, but what I want you guys to know, because I don't know if you all subscribe to my newsletter, is I want you to subscribe to my newsletter when you go to my website. I just put a link in there. I don't know if the links work, but then you'll get the ingredients for the next class. And then I'm sorry, I'm going to be a little, I wanted to do the local relic. For those of you who are in Colorado Springs, they're doing curbside pickup and they're also doing delivery. So it's a great way to support Jeff and what they're doing. Reminder for those of you who want some meal plans, I reduced the price to $6 during the pandemic. So here's a link to that. If you're not in my face group yet, called Vegan Cooking with JL Fields, this is the link to that. And if you like what you got today or in the last 4 classes and you want to help me keep doing these, I have learned to just go ahead and say I accept tips if you'd like to tip me for this. So I want to continue to do that. So someone asked about soy milk. Perfect soy milk for yogurt is really, and I'll put this in the ingredient list if this ends up being what the class is going to be, although I got to say that it looks like sauces, dips, and spreads is winning, and I can't lie, that kind of makes me happy because then I'll have food prepped for the week, but also then we could do the Instant Pot one later. What you want when you're making soy yogurt in the Instant Pot or in your yogurt function, you want a soy milk where the only 2 ingredients on the label, it's soybeans and water. Once you all these other additives are added, it's not going to come out the same. So you want that. Okay, and what else? So there was a lot going on. So right now I'm looking at the chat. So if you have specific questions about umami, ask me now so I can answer them. And I'm going to take a sip. I can't believe that I still have like almost a whole beer here. No miso. How do I thicken my broth? You know what? Honestly, Shelly, if you have an immersion blender, I would just grab take out like maybe a cup of the beans and use an immersion blender really quick, or put them in the blender and then spoon it back into the pot. And that thickness, by pureeing the beans, it'll thicken things up. Someone told me to get drinking. Lower sodium options. Well, if you think about it, we didn't add any salt. And if you use low sodium broth, you are low sodium there. I only used 2 tablespoons of miso. And the tamari that I'm going to use to finish it off is a low sodium tamari. So you're in charge of you. So, you can look for low sodium options of those things. Is there a way I can share the recorded version of this class with someone? What I try to do, and apparently I'm still recording, which is great news, is it takes a while. Once we're done, I download the video, I edit it if I need to, and then I get it up on YouTube, and then I have it up on my website. So the only class that didn't work for was the Instant Pot and Pressure Cooking. The recording failed. So that will be on jlgoesvegan.com is my website. When do you add the tamari? Right now. You add the tamari at the end. And so for the person who was asking about lower sodium, so I added the miso, which is really key. So now I'm going to taste it. And I like salt first off, but I don't think it needs much at all. So taste it first, and then if you're going to do it, like maybe when you serve it, just go like that, right? So instead of putting it in the pot. So now I've just added a little bit to it. But by the way, has anybody tasted yours yet? Because I'm going to tell you, this is one of my favorite recipes of all time. Wait, what's going on with seitan? Oh, do you guys want me to talk? If we do Instant Pot 2.0, we could do seitan too. Okay, do we have any other questions? So you guys okay with this? Pressure still coming down. Yeah, can you ask Jeff if it's cool to ask a brewer if their beers are vegan? He loves that. That's how Jeff and I got to be friends, because a lot of someone asked if it's okay when you go to a brewery or if you're going to order from them to ask if it's vegan. Yes, 100%. Some brewers are snooty and they're obnoxious, but most, they want their customers to be happy, and a lot of them are super intentional about how they brew their beer. And so there's a trend going on right now. It's been going on for a while now, like milkshake IPAs, and that's milk, right? And some stouts. I love stout and I love porter. And while traditionally they've been brewed with some kind of lactose, if you see an oatmeal stout, it's almost always intentionally without lactose. But most brewers are ready to answer that question and are glad to answer that question, because they're not just thinking about the vegans. There are lots of people who are lactose intolerant who won't drink a beer that has lactose in it. So you can definitely ask. Oh, thanks for Sharon for sharing my link. Guinness is now vegan. Can you believe it? I know Guinness, but of course the UK, they're just getting all vegan and everything now. Almond milk stout, Laura. Oh my God, we have one too. And Alternation in Denver is 100% vegan brewery. And so every beer they make is vegan, and they do amazing almond milk stouts. They're incredible. And they do an Oreo one too. Okay, you guys. So this was a test. Remember the first couple of classes, I felt like I was trying to, I'm an overachiever. So sometimes like, I don't know if you've ever heard of that whole like, imposter syndrome kind of thing. It's real. And some people are like, like, how did I get this CEO job or whatever? And when I started these classes, I felt like I had to cook so much to make it worth your while to be here. And last week I about killed myself at the air fryer class. And I had asked you at the end of the class, I'm like, can we just make one thing? And everyone, you all were wonderful. And you said, yes, of course we can just make one thing. But of course, then I needed to make some balsamic vinegar because I'm a show off. And I made the mushroom rice in advance. But the point is, this helps me. Although next week with the meal prep, I'll probably, well, what I'll do is make a lot in advance. So I'm going to give you guys some ingredients if you want to build a mason jar salad with me next week. But I'm also going to have some food that's already prepped, and I'm just going to kind of show you the art of storing food for meal prepping, because this is my theory. I could be wrong, but I feel like a lot of people, because you've been forced to be home for a very long time, many of you have, that you're cooking more. And you're probably pretty excited about it. And you're realizing you're probably saving money. You're eating food that you prefer to be eating all of the time. So then what happens when you go back to work? What happens when a new normal happens? And to me, the perfect answer to that is meal prepping. Because if you've gotten back into the kitchen and you're finding foods that you love and you're wanting to make them, so how can you now make them on a Saturday or Sunday or a Monday or a Wednesday, whatever your day off is, and then get them all ready so that they're delicious, that the texture's still really good, and that you're ready to go all week. And so has been my intention for the meal prep class next week. So when I send out my newsletter, I'll give you a list of ingredients to have together, and then to have a mason jar. I will give you a tip right now for those of you who are going to join me. You want a mason jar with a wide mouth, because we're going to be putting a lot of food in it. And if you get the narrow mouth mason jar, you really can't get, well, you can't get your fist in it, am I right? And so you can't really get all of those veggies in there. So if you have a chance, and most grocery stores sell mason jars, hardware stores are considered essential, but I have a feeling a lot of you probably already have some mason jars. But this is what you're gonna want, and that's what we'll do next week. And so once again, I'm just gonna give you my classes link. I'm gonna see, are there any other last minute questions? Thank you. Someone, I can't tell because it just says it's your iPhone, says that this is a distraction, and that you look forward to it. I really look forward to it too, you guys. So those are my classes. Gonna do the meal prep one more time. And then, oh, the vinegar that I just made, is that what you mean? How long does the vinegar last? Hi, Jenny. The one that I made right now, I'm going to let it sit out for a couple of days before I use it. I'm just going to put this tip link one more time, and then I'm going to stop. What I'll do is put this, I'm going to leave it on the counter. And then what I'm going to do in about 2 or 3 days, I'm going to scoop the currants out, and I'm either going to use them. I'm probably going to use them with some roasted vegetables, but then I can just keep this vinegar either on the counter or in the refrigerator. If I put it in the refrigerator, it'll last a really long time. If I did it on the counter, I'd probably use it within about 7 days or so. But taking the fruit out helps, because you don't want if it's warm in your house, you don't want the fruit to get moldy, right? So I'm just doing it a couple days to get that plumped up flavor, and then I'm going to get that fruit out. If you don't want to use that fruit right away, put that in the refrigerator and then just mark it, right? So, okay. Any other questions? Do you thicken the vinegar or just pour it straight over the fruit? I just pour it straight over the fruit. Okay. Are we good, you guys? Are we feeling good? So let's determine that the poll is over, and unanimously, well, not unanimously, but practically 89% of you want the May 3rd cooking class to be sauces, dips, and spreads. And you have spoken, and that is what I will do. So we know we have at least 2 more classes coming up, and I'm going to keep an eye on the news. And as I've promised you, if people are still at home, I'm going to keep doing these classes for free on Sundays. Even if my state isn't at home anymore, but you're still at home, I'm going to keep doing them. And then once we get our new sense of whatever reality is, I'll probably keep doing classes like this in some form or fashion, so that if you're not in Colorado Springs, we can still cook together. So I want to thank you all for being here. I look forward to this every Sunday. I hope that you have some ideas with your umami, and I would love it if you're on Instagram. I'm JL Goes Vegan. I'm also JL Goes Vegan on Twitter, and my Facebook page is JL Goes Vegan. Tag me and then hashtag vegan umami and let me know if you have put any of these tactics to work. And I can't wait to hear what you think about it. And I really can't wait to hear about your beans. Has anybody had your beans yet? I know some of you are waiting. That's the last question I'm going to ask. Someone asked how to tip. I had the link up. I'll do it one more time. You're so sweet for asking. It's also on my website. Has anybody had their beans yet? Just curious. It's possible not, because you had to wait for the pressure to come down. Okay, Lynn, I will take care of myself. The link didn't connect. I think you're just gonna have to cut and paste it. I'm sorry. Or if you go to jlgoesvegan.com/classes, every class that I have listed for online, when you click it, there's a link there. And thank you for asking. I think that's really sweet, and I appreciate you. And I can't wait till I get to go back to work too and start to teach my cooking classes again. So this has been a blast. I'm going to end the class now. I will get something up at the end of the day, or maybe tomorrow, with the link to the video if you want to watch it again, or if you want to share it with folks. And thank you to all of you guys. I love hanging out with you on Sundays too. I appreciate you so much. I wish I could keep these messages, because they make me so happy, and I'm missing half of them. But with that, I'm going to call it a day. You guys are wonderful. Stay safe, please. And I will see you soon on social media, if not before. Seeing you next Sunday, 1 p.m. Mountain Time. And oh, here, you guys, cheers. I'm gonna do it. Oh, wait, let's see if I can do a gallery view. If you have a drink, let's do some cheers, and we'll see if this makes the video. I see some people. Oh, yeah, I'm seeing some things happening. Okay, appreciate you guys so much. I love cooking with you. Hi, Elaine. I don't know what you got going on there, but I'm giving your hitting your glass. All right, you guys are awesome. Oh, wait, I see Jason and Melissa. What are you pouring there, Jason? Show us the bottle. What's going on? All right, right on. Okay, you guys are awesome. Oh, hey, Christina, this is great. I wish I could see all of you. You guys are so awesome. All right, you guys, cheers. Here's to vegan cooking. I'll see you next week, and I hope you know how much you light up my week every single week. It is my privilege to be with you weekly, and I'll see you soon.